Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and each week I'm joined by hunky, hairy, handsome homos who love film to discuss movie news and films either current or classic. Guys, last week I was like, we need to talk about some classic films, stat, and I think tonight, maybe, we'll fill that very tall order. But of course, with me, as usual, are my partners in sin, crime, I don't know. Both. Jim Pliafico is here with us. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, guys, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And Will Lindis is here, too. Welcome.
Hey,
Will.
guys, and Brad, I got a quick question for you.
Yes?
Where's my money?
Where's my money, bitch?
Well, I left that one off. But, yeah.
Miss Mona takes care of me. I don't know you know money.
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
This is going to be fun. So this week it's kind of funny. A couple weeks ago we were reviewing a horror movie, and I misspoke and said horror movie. And after that we were like...
It's an honest mistake.
Yeah. But then we were like, wait a second. Horror movies. That could be fun. So this brings us to the topic for this week's show. We're calling it the best little horror movies, because we are talking about films that are prostitute-centric. Main characters, tertiary characters, doesn't matter as long as they whore themselves out for sex, they qualify. And there are some damn good horror films out there, and we're going to be talking about a lot of them. We'll also be dishing up a little bit of movie news. It's fun to get back into the swing of that now that we're out of our double feature, month-long no movie news dry spell. Some cool stuff going on. So lots to talk about.
Yeah, speaking of dry spell, that's one of the reasons we're doing a kind of a recap movie week is because we've hit kind of a lull in movie releases at this point.
We really have. There are a few kind of indie things circling the periphery, but in terms of actual widescreen release films, there's nothing that really caught my interest this week.
No.
Unfortunately, Ex Machina, which we really want to see, is not out here, so couldn't do that.
I saw the list of places it's going to open this coming weekend, and we're not going to get one in Tucson this weekend either. We'd have to go to Scottsdale if we want to see it. So.
Are we really going to have to fucking see The Longest Ride?
No, I'll find more horror movies.
Professions. We can do best cop movie, best sports movie. Have we done sports movie? We've probably done sports movie. I don't know. But we can do another themed episode instead of seeing The Longest Ride, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm not feeling very Nicholas Sparksy this week.
No, I'm not either.
We've got other choices coming though, that we could potentially pick from.
You know what we could do, Jim? What we could do? Ryan and his partner Joe are going to be in Phoenix next weekend. We could totally go up there, see Ex Machina, and hang out with them.
I'm down for a short road trip.
We could totally make it like a Friday night thing. We'll talk. Maybe we'll talk.
We'll talk.
But yeah. So anyway, kind of in a dry spell here. Hence, horror movies is what you're getting this week. Hope you're fine with that, because that's what we want to talk about. I have to say, I just took a drink of my drink. I made another fruity.
You didn't like it.
Did you see the face I made?
I know. I could tell.
Let's make it again. Let's make it again. Dramatic reenactment. Ready?
Whoa.
Oh.
No, it's just way too strong. It's very fruity, but I just made it way too strong. I'm like, this much Sprite in a glass of this much alcohol is a good idea, right?
No.
This is our horror episode, not our easy episode.
Some people like their drinks very strong. It's a matter of taste.
I feel like my alcoholic aunt, Anyway, she's in heaven. She knows I love her, but
I don't know how to follow up on that one. That one's all you.
I'm an awful person. I know. Anyway,
family drama is one of those things you just don't dive into.
You know what? I can be a little vulnerable sometimes. It's okay to be vulnerable with our audience. You guys should try it sometime. Then you can have a good cry with someone, in a bathroom at South by Southwest.
Well, Fair enough. Fair enough. Next strong drink I'll make, I'll remember that advice.
There we go. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for Will's family, but I mean, I'm sure I could find something in my family's, history. Maybe some kind of alcoholic family issues. I don't know. If we could have an episode about it.
If you can't draw from the well of family drama to have fun on a podcast, you're doing life wrong.
Right.
Well, here's the question. Does anyone have a family member who is or was currently a prostitute? Because that would be super fitting. You guys thought about that longer than I was expecting.
I don't think so.
I don't think I have any.
I don't think I do. But you know what? People often don't tell you that they've been a prostitute. So
you never know. As well.
You know what I mean? You never know. But we do have a lot of movies to talk about, and we still have some awesome movie news to get into as well. So, Are you guys ready to do it? Should we just
let's go?
Yeah, let's do it.
Here we go. While I'm still sober, let's discuss a little bit of movie news. Dun 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 dun.
Nice.
And Brad's drunk.
Not quite yet. Not
He will
quite
be.
yet.
I would just love that transition. Just while I'm still sober, come back from the cut, and I'm drunk.
Anyway, so movie news. I will kick things off. I have some sad movie news. Are you ready for the infinite sadness of my movie news?
After already being vulnerable, now you're going to bring sadness? Oh, Brad. All right.
I am the Smashing Pumpkins of our podcast. So much infinite sadness. Hey, so my movie news this week, Michelle MacLaren, awesome director, several Breaking Bad episodes, some Game of Thrones episodes. She's fucking amazing. Was set to direct the new Wonder Woman movie, and I was so excited about that. But creative differences have caused her to pack up her Ozymandias and move the fuck on. She's no longer attached to the film. Creative differences is always that umbrella term that means people couldn't get their behavioral ducks in a row and get along. I don't know who they're going to bring in to replace her, but that's really sad. I think she would have done a phenomenal job with that movie. Wonder Woman really needs a strong director who knows how to direct women, and I think that's something that Michelle MacLaren, is amazing at. So I don't know who's coming in, but I mean, did you guys even know that she was directing Wonder Woman?
I did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, go for it, Jim.
Yeah, I did know that, but I didn't know. I mean, this news I think is fresh off the presses, today.
Yeah. 2 hours ago, or something like that. It's really fresh.
So it was kind of a surprise to me, Brad, when you said what you were gonna cover for your news bit, and I gotta admit, I mean, I wasn't a huge Wonder Woman fan, TV show, whatever, comic growing up. I mean, I knew about it, I just wasn't into it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I heard Michelle MacLaren, who, has directed some kick-ass episodes of Breaking Bad and, like you said, Brad, Game of Thrones, I'm like, it's going to be interesting to see what she can bring to, your run-of-the-mill comic movie that's centered around a woman superhero. Mm-hmm. And now, who knows what we're going to get? I don't know. I mean, I hope they find someone as exciting to take it over. If indeed they're going forward with it, I guess they are, right? I mean, is it?
Yeah,
it's on the schedule, right? So it's
still moving forward.
Now they're on the clock, right? So now they got to find somebody, get somebody in there, and start working on it. And I'll admit, I mean, my interest in the movie, which was primarily because of her, is now dropped quite a bit since this news. So, I mean, we'll see who picks it up, and maybe I can get re-energized again. I don't know.
Yeah, this is disappointing news. DC is trying to put together a formula that another company has already done successfully, and that's always a hard thing to do. Instead of striking new territory, following someone else's blueprint. And part of that was developing this long schedule of movies with, this character appearing in this movie and this character appearing in that. And we've seen the slate, we've seen the schedule. And for them to develop creative differences this early on into their cycle, for them to lose a director, for them to impact one of those tentpole movies. It's going to be interesting to see if there's any ripple effects from that, not only for this movie, but if it impacts anything else on the schedule, or just any, if we see any other creative differences coming out of some of these other films. I'll be interested in just seeing how things shake out from here. This is disappointing news. I think Wonder Woman's one of those characters who, as a comic book fan, I think a lot of us comic book fans like her because she's freaking Wonder Woman. But I know she also has a special spot in the hearts of many a gay man. And so this is kind of a double wound for anyone that might be listening to this specific show. So I hope they pull it out. I want to see a good Wonder Woman movie.
We'll see what happens, I guess.
What are you feeling about it, Brad?
Well, I think I mentioned in my infinite sadness intro that I'm infinitely sad. I got really pumped when I heard that she was attached to this, because I feel like with these DC movies, Will, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. And everyone apparently agrees with everything you say on our podcast, by the way. No one tweets, oh, I agree with what Jim said, or I agree with what Brad said. It's all, I agree with whatever Will says. So
what can I say? I'm a Twitter whore.
Wow.
You apparently are the source of MBP wisdom.
Twitter whore?
Twitter whore. But, it's one of those things where DC at this point is trying to create their own success, but I mean, they have big shoes to fill, right? And so they really need to get some great standout directors attached to these films that are going to make them something memorable, make them something awesome and amazing. And unfortunately, issues like this just put a sour taste in your mouth before you ever even get into the movie theater. And now when I go see Wonder Woman, I'm going to be thinking, I really wish I could have seen what the Michelle McLaren version of this movie would have been like, instead of, wow, you know what? I really appreciate what this director did. I mean, maybe that will be the case. Maybe it'll be a great director, and I won't think that at all. But looking ahead right now, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, Brad, you touched on something when you mentioned when things like this happen. DC's still trying to get their footing, right? They're trying to. I mean, Marvel's got a huge head start in whatever race you want to call this, and when things like this happen to Marvel, and they have happened, right? They lost Edgar Wright for Ant-Man and things like that. It seems like the forward momentum that Marvel has built and the goodwill that they have has been able to kind of smooth out these bumps that Marvel gets. But every time something like this happens at DC, it's like pick up the blocks and start again. It just seems like a bigger setback that can't be absorbed by the good momentum that something like Marvel has.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I mean, aside from Zack Snyder and Chris Nolan's kind of like collaborations in the past, really we've only had one film that DC's put out that's a part of the cycle, and that's Man of Steel. Because even the Nolan films aren't part of this new mythos, So really, they're only one film into their cycle. You've got one coming out 2016, their big one, which is going to have like all their characters crammed into it, and that's going to set the rest of these wheels in motion. But yeah, this does hurt the momentum. This does make you kind of wonder how things are going. And it could be isolated. It could just be this one particular director with this one particular creative team. That happens. It can totally happen, and it not necessarily be anyone's fault. Just sometimes the right person, the person that we want maybe just doesn't fit a particular project at a specific time. Maybe that's what this is, but it still makes you raise your eyebrow, wonder what could have been, and hope that they fill the slot sometime soon with someone who has vision and is able to write a strong female character.
Right.
Wonder what?
You got a Wonder Woman.
You got a Wonder Woman.
You got a Wonder Woman.
Indeed.
That's the way The Rock would say
it. Yeah. Dude, I'm totally hearing an echo of myself. Where is that coming from?
I don't know. You don't have your speakers on or anything, do you?
No. I don't think so.
Weird.
Nope, it's all through my headphones. Echo. That's odd.
A Google Plus artifact, maybe? Now I'm hearing myself.
Yeah, that's weird.
Oh, hope it's not an artifact. That won't be good.
Way to go, Google Plus.
Although I haven't really heard it when I've been editing the shows, so maybe it's just a live artifact.
Go home, Google Plus. You're drunk. No, that's
Did you spill a little bit of your drink on your keyboard?
I think that's what I did. Yeah. Okay, so we've been spending way too much time talking about my movie news bit, so let's go ahead and move on. Will, what do you got?
All right, so Jim mentioned a few moments ago Edgar Wright / AntMan. I'm going to talk about AntMan. This is AntMan. Yeah, so this is a movie that suffered the same setback that we just talked about with Wonder Woman. Originally, we had Edgar Wright attached to direct. There were creative differences. He didn't want to make the film as integrated into the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which obviously is not Marvel's strategy. So he was no longer attached to the project. So they brought in Peyton Reed instead. And I think a lot of people have been sitting back wondering, like, how is this going to look? Were there issues? Is this going to be an interesting film, or is this going to be like a bunch of like ramshackle things pushed all together because of the direction change? And I've been one of those people too. I've been actually wondering if like maybe this is Marvel's first like failure. Maybe this is going to be the one that kind of sets them off the track. And the trailer is now out, the first full trailer, and you can only go so far off of a trailer, but it looks fucking awesome. And that's exciting. You know, if Marvel knows nothing else, they know how to cut a good trailer. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's online pretty much everywhere right now. Click one of the first 5 links in Facebook. You found it. One of the things I like so much about this trailer is it blends a lot of the things that you know are going to be in this film. There's a lot of humor built into this trailer, which is definitely one of director Peyton Reed's strong points. You know, he's the guy that directed Yes Man, The Breakup, things like that. We get to see some cool action. A lot of, you know, Ant-Man doing his shrinking and growing and his super strength and running up this gun and doing all these different things, playing with small objects, playing with large objects. It's really cool. And the other thing you get to see about it in this trailer is the thing that excites me most, the thing that has made me kind of love the Marvel films in general is the Marvel films have built a strategy out of, instead of making superhero movies, they make genre movies within this superhero universe. You know, we've got spy movies in Captain America, or war movies in Captain America. You've got mythology in Thor. You've got space opera in Guardians of the Galaxy. And here, what you've got is a heist movie with superheroes. And that I'm excited to see how that works. I'm excited to see how Marvel pulls off a good heist movie. Trailer looks really cool. We'll have to see how the finished product is. But guys, did you get a chance to see this trailer?
Believe it or not, I haven't, unfortunately. I saw that it was posted. I just haven't done it yet. So I definitely need to check it out.
Yeah, I did see it. I saw it either, when did it come out, like yesterday or something? I might have seen it yesterday, and yeah, the trailer looked pretty interesting to me. Again, this coming from more of a non-comic book guy. I did see a lot of the same, you know, it's got a lot of the same stuff in it. It's got, the one thing that stood out to me, it's got red guy versus yellow guy. I mean, that's kind of what I saw in this movie, and I instantly thought of Flash for some reason.
Oh, wow.
It's got the villain color apparently must be yellow. That's all I can figure out. Right? Is that something in the comic book world, maybe?
Usually, historically, it's been green and purple, like
green or purple.
Kind of like 60s through the 80s, because it was a lot of it had to do with how expensive the ink was. You could have a villain just done in just like random greens and purples, and it was slightly cheaper to ink them. So yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, I thought the trailer looked pretty good, but like you're right, Will. I mean, we can definitely splice interesting and exciting trailers together. We got an exciting movie to look forward to. Maybe this is one I'll like I did with Guardians of the Galaxy. You know, kind of a new. Maybe it'll be a bit of a fresh take on things. I just hope it's not too much of same, comic book movie.
Absolutely, yep. That's my fear too. But we'll see. I don't know. As long as it's not another Thor 2, I think I'll be okay.
You're a Paul Rudd fan anyway, Brad.
I do love Paul Rudd, and if we see lots of him shirtless and hairy, I will be A-okay with that too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I don't know if we're going to see shirtless and hairy in a Marvel movie.
Oh, well, I mean, maybe not shirtless and hairy. But there's a good
shirtless and shaved.
We'll see shirtless.
Yeah.
Well, we get to see Wolverine hairy. Why can't? I mean, ants are fucking hairy.
Yeah, he's not an actual ant.
But he hangs out with ants.
That's right. Maybe he wants to be like the cool ant kids.
Yeah.
Maybe that's exactly what it is. He's going to be like the hottest ant ever, right?
That would be awesome. Totally. Yeah. We'll see. All right, I'll have to go watch the trailer. Hey, Paul Alderete is hanging out with us tonight. Hello, Paul.
Hey,
Good
Paul.
to have you here. He says, by the way, he hears no echo, so apparently it's just something happening,
Live artifact for us.
Probably all in our heads.
He also says he has his zebra thong and 9-inch stripper boots on in honor of tonight's, best little horror movies. So
he's gone all out with the horror.
Paul, you're our bottom bitch.
Or our biggest whore, just for tonight. With boots like that.
Just because you dress like a whore doesn't mean you're a whore. Let's get this straight.
Oh, that's true. That's
Unless
true.
you've accepted money for sex, then you can't really be a whore.
That's
Paul,
true.
you do not have to answer whether or not you have accepted money for sex or not.
I just keep having flashbacks to South Park, and I forget what episode or what character, but someone's like, "I'm a whore." Like, it's probably the gayest thing I've ever said, but
no, it's not.
Let's
oh my
go
God!
back and mine
It was
old episodes for sound bites.
It was the Paris Hilton episode where all the girls are trying to be like Paris Hilton, and they're like buying her clothes. Remember? What was it? Dirty Whore Playset or something?
Mm-hmm.
And it comes with like a camera to film yourself having sex, like with night vision.
To make your own sex tape.
To make your own sex tape, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Anyway, sorry. Quick aside, Jim. Movie news.
Oh, okay. So mine is a bit of casting news for another big franchise that we enjoy. Deadline.com reported that an actress that, not a huge name, Sofia Boutella. She's the girl who played Gazelle in Kingsman Secret Service. She was the villain assassin chick with the spring blades for legs who slice people up. Minor spoilers there. But she's landed a lead role, quote unquote, in Star Trek 3.
Wow, really?
And the Star Trek 3 movie, which I don't think has another title yet, because we need to have Star Trek blankety blank, I don't know, Avengers Age of Ultron or Captain America Winter Soldier.
Return of the Jedi, Phantom Menace.
You know that Star Trek's going to get another title. But anyway,
I think it's going to be Star TR3K.
TR3K? Are you calling that right now? Are you calling that?
Star Trethreek.
Trethreek? Nice.
Oh my! Yeah. The thing is that they're going to do that too. We're going to see promotional material.
Nice.
Side note: if you're a filmmaker or a marketer who's listening to this episode, and you think, "Hey, you know what? There's a number in our movie title. We should replace one of the letters in the movie title with one of the letters." Slap yourself hard, and do not do that thing. Fucking hate that. I'm sorry. That was an aside.
Wow. Little rant from Will. So much for TAC3 and
I know.
TAC4 anyway, so the Star Trek movies, we don't know that much about it. It's going to be co-written by Simon Pegg. We know that. We know it's going to be directed by Justin Lin, who was the director of all the previous Fast and Furious movies, including what I think is the best one, which is 6. So he's going to be directing the Star Trek movie. That's going to be an interesting jump for him from car scene madness to Star Trek, handling this huge responsibility. Brad's got his dubious look face going.
Telling you, man, I'm totally waiting for Scotty to be like, Captain, we need to hit the NOS.
When Warp 10 won't do it, they just got to hit the NOS.
Hit the nitrous oxide.
Yeah. Anyway, a little bit of casting news there. Idris Elba is going to play a villain in this one, I hear. So it's going to be interesting. I expect more news to start popping up because the movie's slated for a July 8th of 2016 release. So that's 14, 15 months away. So things are gonna start heating up.
I hope it's the Klingons. Idris Elba would be a phenomenal Klingon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, we don't know what kind of acting chops this Sofia Boutella has, but she definitely had some presence as the sidekick villain in Kingsman: Secret Service.
That's true. Absolutely.
So see what she does.
Bring it on, Star Trek 3K.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Indeed. Okay. All right. All right. All right.
Indeed.
All right. Indeed. For sure. Okay. All right. Should we talk about some horror movies, guys? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Show me the money first.
Just put it on the table. Don't count it. It's all there. All right. Here we go. Our blah, 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 blah. What are we talking about? Horror movies. That's right. Our best little horror movies. Here we go. Maybe. Okay. So, for purposes of this discussion, we'll be talking about movies that have probably been out for a while. I don't think we really have any new movies looking at our picks. I don't see anything from the last few years. But needless to say, these movies are pretty awesome. We may mildly spoil some things about them, but, I mean, in general, if you haven't seen any of these movies, you definitely should go out and do so. Will, why don't you kick us off? What's first on your horror list?
Oh yeah, so it was a little hard once we it was a little difficult once we made the decision for this topic because I started looking up a few different famous or popular or well-known movie prostitutes, and I found that aside from a few like very notable standouts, there were a lot of films that were like listed on different sites online or just just any place I looked where I'm like, man, I have not seen this. So I come into this fully with the knowledge that I think this is maybe a weakness in my my film background. I have not seen as many movie prostitutes as I probably should have, or yeah, I guess I'll say that. So the first one I wanted to really talk about here was a character from one of my absolute favorite movies of all time. It's 1993's True Romance, a movie directed by Tony Stark. Tony Stark.
Tony Stark.
Yeah, I totally.
Wow.
I've still got Marvel on the brain. Fuck.
And I'm the one that's drinking.
I know, right? I'm teetotaling tonight. Yeah, director Tony Scott. Writer Quentin Tarantino with a crazy amazing cast, a lot of great talented people, a lot of them when they were young actors, Christian Slater, Patricia Arquette, Dennis Hopper, Val Kilmer, the list goes on and on. But the character I want to talk about is one of the two leads, Patricia Arquette's Alabama Whitman. Kind of setting this story up, this movie is a Tarantino crime film, but also it's a romance between the Christian Slater character and Patricia Arquette's character. Alabama is a call girl. She makes a point. I'm not a prostitute. I'm a call girl, but she accepts money for sex. So we'll call a spade here. And Christian Slater's boss sets her up with him as a birthday present. The two fall in love instantly and get married right away. And then crime happens around them, and stakes get really big. I freaking love this movie. One of my all-time favorite movies. This is one of the movies when I think about Patricia Arquette, and of course Boyhood is now obviously the thing that I equate with her, but before Boyhood it was this film and it was this particular role, full of so much energy and so much life and so much kind of bubbly optimism. This was the romance movie for people that don't really like romance movies. We even have a run-in with her old pimp. We get to see kind of like that seedy underbelly of things. I love this character. I love this movie. She may not be one of the most iconic movie prostitutes, but she's the one from one of my all-time favorite movies, one of my probably top 10, top 20 movies if I really had to like quantify it. So I had to go with Alabama Whitman from True Romance. Guys, you guys have seen True Romance?
I don't think I've seen True Romance.
I have. I saw it. How did I see it? I only saw it maybe a year ago or something. We didn't see it together. This is the one that it has James Gandolfini in it. It has Christopher Walken,
Brad Pitt, Gary Oldman play. Gary Oldman plays a character in this movie that is not at all like
right.
Bailey. from Spring Breakers.
Duh, we did see that. You're right. I did see that. Yeah. You just had to mention James Gandolfini. We saw that right after he died, and I tuned everything else but James Gandolfini out. So that's
yeah, definitely a kind of pulpy story, as I remember. Yeah, I mean, I loved a lot of this movie. The cast was amazing. It's unfortunate that part of the movie that I didn't like was the lead actor, which was
Christian Slater.
Christian Slater, yeah, and the lead character.
God,
he's a little bit grating, but I mean, as far as the movie goes, I love the idea. I love those movies. It's kind of like Pulp Fiction, where you have several stories going on at once, and some great individual scenes, like the Christopher Walken interrogation scene. I forget who that was with, who the dad was.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, Dennis Hopper. Another great actor that's no longer with us. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed parts of this movie. Some of it I didn't really dig. But we're not reviewing the movie, so that's fine.
We're reviewing the whore.
How could we leave off Bronson Pinchot?
Yep, he was in this as well.
Cousin Balky.
Samuel Jackson had a bit part in this. Michael Rappaport, it's got a cast. It's got one of the most star-studded casts I think I've ever seen in a film.
Indeed. Yeah, it was actually a good movie. Now that I recall which one you're talking about, I would say, as horror movies go, it's definitely 90s, right? I mean, this movie came out when?
1993.
92, 93, right?
Yeah.
So you definitely feel its age, especially because Christian Slater was like hot shit back then, and so they were totally like trying to make you believe that he's like this, lovable
leading man kind of
leading man, and it's like, no. But yeah, great pick, Will. Absolutely.
Was Patricia Arquette in that fight scene with Gandolfini? There was
one of the, I guess, because we're doing minor spoilers. Yeah, probably the best scene of the movie was, for me, was Patricia Arquette versus James Gandolfini.
Tony Soprano.
Their showdown, which turns into an actual, full-on fist fight between the two of them.
Yeah, pretty awesome stuff there.
Most definitely. All right, Jim, what's your first
next
movie? Yes, you're next.
So, boy, I sat down and it's funny that the two movies that I picked for tonight both have male prostitutes in them. I don't know if I'm the only one who picked movies with male prostitutes. But the first one is 1969's Midnight Cowboy. I may be the only one of the three of us who've seen this one.
I don't think I've ever heard of Midnight Cowboy.
All right.
That's go ahead.
Best Picture winner in 1969. This one has Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight. It's basically a two-hander. Hoffman, up to that point, had done The Graduate a couple of years before. And Voight was pretty much a newcomer, fresh face on the scene. You're right. Whoever put that up there, but I was going to mention that. It is the only X-rated movie to ever win Best Picture.
It's actually X-rated? Really?
It was X-rated. It's R-rated now. We'll get into that. But it was X-rated at the time that it came out, and for a couple of years until they relaxed the standards a little bit. And then a few years later, it was re-released without being edited at all as an R-rated movie. But so it was very controversial at the time. So you have an X-rated movie. So this is a movie where Jon Voight plays Joe, and he's our prostitute. His name is Joe Buck. He's a young, handsome guy from a small town in West Texas who sets off to see the big city. And he hops a bus to New York with big plans. He's going to be his big plan is that he's going to be a male hustler, a hustler male prostitute, because he thinks there's lots of rich women in New York that need his services, and he's going to go there and make a lot of money. But once in New York, he kind of fails horribly at the prostitution thing. So he ends up meeting this guy, played by Dustin Hoffman, named Enrico Rizzo, or Ratzo Rizzo is his name. And he's kind of a weird little dude, a little bit older, wiser, been in New York for a while, but he has big dreams also. His big dream is to get out of New York and enjoy the high life somewhere on the beach in Florida. Anyway, the two team up and become this unlikely pairing. Kind of an odd couple movie. There's a lot of gay undertones in this movie when I watch it now. And as he starts to fail at being a male prostitute servicing women, there's some allusion to him turning tricks with dudes to start making money when things get really tough. And it's just, I mean, and that was the whole reason for the X rating in the movie, because the studio was told to accept the X rating because of homosexual frame of reference and its possible influence on youngsters at the time who could, even youngsters who could see an R-rated movie. So they went with the X for that movie. And also the director, John Schlesinger, was an openly gay director back in the 60s. So that was kind of a big deal. I kind of love this movie. It's kind of a, when you think about it, it's kind of a small story. It's really about the human condition, and the themes in there are broken dreams and friendship. And this movie has a bit of an emotional wallop for me. Really, the two performances are amazing. Hoffman and Voight carry the whole movie, and it's really great. Also, one thing, the song "Everybody's Talking at Me" you've heard by Nielsen. Everybody's talking at me. Anyway, that's the theme song for the movie. Brad, you haven't heard that song?
I don't think so.
Well, you're going to get an introduction.
Indeed.
But yeah, definitely a movie about the dreams of a male prostitute.
And what male prostitute doesn't have dreams?
That's right. Who doesn't have dreams? Even
follow your dreams.
Even
man out there with a heart of gold.
Right.
Will, did you see this one?
Not recently enough to talk about it. We had growing up, my family had this just this big cabinet full of
X-rated movies.
No. I mean, maybe they did. I wasn't privy to that one.
Drawer.
But it was my mom would have these movies, and she would have these VHS tapes that had 3 movies on them, just kind of from the video store all recorded on. And I think I watched this when I was 8. So I remember so I remember the movie from the lens of an 8-year-old, which means I don't remember it all that fucking well at all. So I need to revisit it.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic movie, and I think, aside from the backdrop and New York of the late 1960s, early 70s, I think the story itself holds up really well. So definitely worth, for people who haven't seen it, I would recommend seeing this movie if you want to, kind of bolster your classic movie knowledge and experience. This is a good one to go to.
Awesome. I definitely look forward to watching it with you, babe, for sure. All right, my first pick, I'm going to give you a quote as a clue. You guys know what it is, so you don't get to play. But those of you in listener land, the quote is, I say who, I say when, I say who. I'm sure you've guessed it. No, they've guessed it already because it's one of those gay icon movies. Pretty Woman, yo. Love that movie. Gosh, I've probably seen that movie 1,000 times at this point. It was one of my favorite movies growing up. And it's one of those things where, I mean, it's definitely a product, right? I mean, it's 1990. It's right in the cusp of the 80s falling away and the 90s starting their thing. So it lives in this little weird in-between world of, stuff. But I love Julia Roberts in this movie. Richard Gere, I don't really think he's that attractive. I don't get it. Sorry, straight women everywhere. But actually, there was kind of a weird sexual vibe between him and Julia Roberts that wasn't just sexy, but it was loving and tender in a way that I just found really sweet. Like when I think of my favorite like romance movies, this one comes to the forefront as well. I'm sure pretty much everyone and their brother has seen Pretty Woman, but it's got a great cast. Obviously, Julia Roberts, Richard Gere, Hector Elizondo, who I could listen to that man read the phone book and shudder with each word. He's amazing. Jason Alexander plays a dirty little pig. I want to punch him in his face, which is the mark of a good actor. He's selling it. We've got Eleanor Donahue, who you might remember her from Father Knows Best. Long time ago, she plays the store clerk. And just some super iconic scenes. After Julia Roberts' character gets the credit card, she goes in to go shopping at this Rodeo Drive store, and they turn her away, right? And the next day she shows up with all this shit she's bought, and she's like, "Hi, do you remember me? I was here yesterday." And they're like, "Oh no, sorry." And she's like, "Oh, you turned me away. Big mistake. Big, huge. I'm off to go shopping now." And I don't know. For me, it's just there are so many great lines in that movie. I could probably recite them in my sleep. I love it so much, and so it's one of two of the most iconic horror movies for me. I'm sure you guys have seen it. Would you agree? It definitely fits the bill.
It's a really good pick. I haven't seen Pretty Woman.
What?
Yeah, so I have nothing to add to it.
Will's not that gay, apparently.
Apparently not.
You need to fill your whore hole, Will.
Apparently, I do need to fill my whore hole stat. Yeah, it's one of those ones that the math on this is really weird, based on the previous segment. But it came out in 1990, so I was 8 when this movie came out. So I was gonna say so that means it wasn't on my radar, but apparently Midnight Cowboy was.
Whatever falls out of Dad's top drawer.
Yeah, right.
Bottom drawer.
But after that, it became kind of one of those movies where, once I came to the age of going down, tracking down older movies that I missed. I'm usually not a huge Richard Gere or a huge Julia Roberts person, so the two of them in a movie together on its own doesn't do much for me. And maybe I should see this. Maybe this is the one that maybe this is the film that explains their success. I'm guessing it does.
It's basically My Fair Lady.
Yeah,
right?
With $463 million grossed, that's ridiculous. So yeah, I should go give this one a watch.
Yeah, you really should.
It's the My Fair Lady story, basically. And Brad, I gotta ask though, I remember seeing this movie when it came out, because at the time it came out, I was just married to my wife at the time, and I think she's the one who kind of brought me to this movie. But I'm trying to ask, what would bring I don't know when you saw it, in your teens maybe? What would bring a teen to this?
So my mom loved this movie, and my mom watched, she and I watched movies together all the time. Our movie tastes were very much in line. And so, Will, as with your parents, this is one of those video store, don't tell the government it was taped on our, $800 dual tape deck where you could put one in and play it and then put the other in and record it.
Piracy.
I know. But at least I'm not downloading the first 4 episodes of Game of Thrones
and putting them online.
Fucking assholes.
Oh, don't get me started.
I know. But anyway, so it was just one of those things where on a rainy day or Mom and I would decide that she didn't feel like going to work, I didn't feel like going to school, so we would have a mental health day, and we would just raid the video cabinet, and Pretty Woman would just always be one of those that we would pick. Although I always got vaguely uncomfortable, spoilers, Will, sorry, when Richard Gere is laying on the couch and she's undoing his belt with her teeth, and then they're watching I Love Lucy and she's giving him head. I felt really uncomfortable watching that with my mom. It was weird.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What was this movie rated? Do you have any idea? Is it R?
I can go check.
I don't know.
I forget.
Anyways, times have certainly changed, obviously, between 1969 and 1990, when this one movie's X-rated and has basically no sex shown, and then another one shows a blowjob on the couch.
Well, okay, it was an implied blowjob. She was you didn't see her head bobbing up and down or anything. You know what I mean? It was just you knew what was happening.
She disappears out of frame.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, it was directed by Gary Marshall, so I mean, it's not like he's, way to make it a super, over the top sex film. I mean, like you said, Jim, it's more of the My Fair Lady story, but like with hooker earrings.
Right. Right. So, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was. I mean, by and large, it was audience friendly. I wanted a pair of, hooker earrings myself, which probably said something.
So if you think about it, so this one was rated R, says the Google, and also think about it in context of like, I think there was a little string of movies around this time where they played around with kind of these more sexual themes in these romantic comedies, I guess, before steering away from them and making them a little more lighter fare. I think 1989 had When Harry Met Sally, which had the orgasm in the diner scene.
Right.
And that also rated R movie. So, I guess that was the par for the course. Like, get as close to the line as you could with your romantic comedies of the late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, yep. I mean, what's interesting here too is that I'm surprised. I'm not really surprised because since it's an older movie. But 10 years earlier, Richard Gere had played a male prostitute in a movie called American Gigolo.
Well, there you go.
And that should have been on your list too.
I know. Well, it definitely is on a lot of lists about prostitution movies. But yeah, that was another film that created quite a scandal when it came out. It's one thing to have a movie about prostitutes, but when you start folding in male prostitutes, it's a little bit more risque for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why, but it was an interesting choice of casting, I think, for Pretty Woman, that you have a guy that's played a male prostitute is now, meeting up with another prostitute and showing her the ways of, how to be a classy lady.
Speaking of American Gigolo, you guys want to hear some of our listeners' picks for best little horror movies?
Sure. Ooh, perfect. Go for it.
Steve Mowry says, when you guys mentioned that as a misheard but now for serious topic the other week, I almost careened off the road. Now you're actually doing it. I'm glad you didn't die, Steve Mowry, because of us. That would have been bad.
No.
But he says some of his picks are My Own Private Idaho, American Gigolo, as other examples. So awesome. Tom Smith says Star Booty is one of his.
That sounds like it could come out of Dad's top drawer.
Right.
Paul Alderete says Mysterious Skin. It's a hard one to watch, but it's fantastic. And Eric Riley says he recently saw a little movie about a rent boy lost in an apartment called Strapped. He really liked it, and it's on Netflix. So check it out. Chris Lopez mentioned one as well, but it's going to steal the thunder from my second pick. So
okay.
I'm
going to hold off.
I'm going to hold off, Chris. I'm holding you in reserve, but you're with us always.
I think Strapped, isn't that the alternate title for 50 Shades of Grey?
It might be.
Anyway, all right. Will, what's your second and final pick?
So for my second pick, I wanted to go a different direction than my first pick. First pick, I went with, Alabama, sort of the hooker with the heart of gold, kind of the Pretty Woman story. She's lovable. She's a scrapper. She's someone you really root for. My other choice is someone who turned to prostitution for an addiction, and it's the character of Marion, played by Jennifer Connelly in 2000's Requiem for a Dream. Requiem for a Dream is another one of those movies that I place really high on my personal list, although it's one that's extremely hard to watch because, man, I can think of no bigger downer movie than Requiem for a Dream. Like, that movie, like, if you're ever feeling just a little too happy or just like, man, I had a really good day, and you want to turn that down a couple of notches, Requiem for a Dream is your movie. So this is a Darren Aronofsky movie, a director I love quite a bit. In it, you have these four characters. One of them is Jared Leto's character and his friend Tyrone, played by Marlon Wayans. His girlfriend, Jennifer Connelly's character, and his mother, Ellen Burstyn, all of which come to grips with their failed grasp on the American dream. In it, Jennifer Connelly's character wants to open up a kind of like a fashion shop, like a clothing boutique type thing. The problem is that she and Jared Leto's character and Marlon Wayne's character are all like super hooked on heroin. They start getting involved with an illegal drug trade. One thing turns to another. Everyone's life turns to shit. And Jennifer Connelly starts sleeping with men for money to feed her addiction. Starts off innocently enough. Maybe innocently isn't the right word, but it starts off with her sleeping with her psychiatrist for money, and it ends with, and we're in spoilers, and I kind of have to talk about this if we're talking about the prostitution scenes, because it's more towards the end of the film. So this is a bit of more of a heavy spoiler if anyone's listening. Pause for a second or what have you. But there's a kind of an infamous sequence where Jennifer Connelly is sleeping with a bunch of men and performing at this like sex club with another woman with a double-headed dildo as the men start shouting ass to ass at her. It is a very depraved scene. It's a very uncomfortable scene, and it shows you that a lot of times, a lot of the films that are certainly the ones that I looked at and might be on some of our other lists are the hooker with a heart of gold. Like, you kind of put like the charming or the bright side to the story. But this one certainly doesn't let you do that. This is a very stark reality, and at no time do you feel she is empowered or that she is doing what she's got to do. It just makes you feel really sad and really dirty. But we're talking about whores. I really do recommend anyone who hasn't seen this to go check it out. Darren Aronofsky is an absolute brilliant filmmaker. Loved him and what he did with like Black Swan and The Wrestler. Even Noah, I thought way exceeded kind of what it could have been. But anyways, getting back to Requiem for a Dream, have you guys seen this one, and what are your thoughts?
We are quickly running up against the time. It's amazing how much we love talking about horror movies. So I will be very brief in my thoughts. Requiem for a Dream is one of those movies I didn't see till probably a couple of years ago. Everyone was like, oh my God, Requiem for a Dream. And whenever people are like that about movies, I'm like, I don't want to see it. I'll wait. But Jim, I think you had actually mentioned how good this movie was, so we sat down and watched it together.
Actually, I hadn't seen it till we saw it either.
Well, right, but you had mentioned like how much buzz it was getting, how good it was supposed to be, and I'm like, well, if my wonderful partner wants to watch it, why not? And I never enjoyed watching someone clean house on speed so much in my whole life. It was amazing. I loved it. It was great. It's a phenomenal film. It's one of those that like I wouldn't necessarily think of as like a go-to film for me, but it's got an amazing score. That soundtrack is haunting. I mean, it is, such a great use of music, and performances were amazing. Deals with a relevant social topic, makes you think about TVs in a different way, kind of trippy, kind of crazy, but good stuff. I absolutely loved it. I wish I hadn't waited so long to see it.
Yeah, I'll be quick too, Will. Great choice. It had been a few years since we've seen it, and it's definitely one of those films that is near the top of my list for rewatches because there's a lot to unpack in this movie that you don't necessarily fully absorb the first time through. Great movie. I also love Aronofsky in some of his other works too. But yeah, I'm going to go back and watch this. I had kind of actually forgotten that there was a whole prostitution aspect to one of the characters in this movie. So that's definitely at least one reason to go back and watch it. And to be honest, I don't mind downer movies. I guess I like movies that move me in any way, shape, or form. It's the ones that don't move me at all and I don't really feel much of anything are the ones that just are unmemorable to me and just fall off my list. And Requiem for the Dream is one that I remember enough to want to go back and watch.
Absolutely. Great pick, Will. All right, Jim, what's your final pick?
My final pick is a movie that has another male prostitute. This time, though, this one happens to be an android or a robot or a mecha male prostitute named Gigolo Joe. And the movie is Artificial Intelligence. It's a movie from 2001. You guys may be familiar with it. I think science fiction fans of our couple of generations are probably very familiar with this. written, directed, produced by Steven Spielberg. It was previously in the hands of Stanley Kubrick, who kind of gave it over to Steven Spielberg at one point later on in his life before he unfortunately Kubrick passed away and actually never did see the final result of this movie. This one stars, it's got Haley Joel Osment, Sam Robards, Francis O'Connor, who we love, Brendan Gleeson, who I had even forgotten was in the movie, William Hurt, just a great bunch of actors. Robin Williams does some voice acting in this. If you guys remember, his voice acting as I forget, Mr. Know-It-All or something. I forget what the name of it is, but it basically, AI is the Pinocchio story. It's about a little boy robot who is one of the first robots who is programmed to love instead of just doing tasks for humans and being unloving companions. And just a really this one kind of divided people. It was very divisive. I love this movie. It's another one I would go back and watch. But to our prostitute, Gigolo Joe is. Will, you mentioned it. This is one of those heart of gold kind of prostitute guys. He befriends our lead character, David, the little boy who's kind of lost in this big world and kind of ends up being kind of like a big brother or mentor to David for part of the story and brings him through this horrifying futuristic world. And we also learn a little bit about Gigolo Joe himself, about he's got a very high opinion of himself. Apparently, he's very good at what he does in the sack and out because he's programmed for sex, but he's also programmed for romance and to please women. And his opinion of himself is very high. He's just a very fun character for a prostitute, and how he as a prostitute ends up becoming kind of a hero to the little boy robot. And he's probably one of the more human-like characters in this movie. Again, I love this movie. There's a lot to say about the movie, but I know we're short on time. Do you guys remember AI? Remember the movie?
Oh God, yeah. AI was one of those things. That was Haley Joel Osment, right?
Haley Joel Osment was David, the boy robot.
He was David, the boy robot. It was one of those. I mean, again, super, super hyped up, but I actually saw it before I heard all the crazy hype. And I loved that movie. I've always been a big fan of, like, androids in general. Love Data in Star Trek, you know what I mean? So seeing David in this movie and Gigolo Joe, like, helping him out, and anyway, blah, 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 blah. I thought it was a great film. When I think about horror films, this one doesn't immediately spring to mind. But when you mentioned you were doing it, I was, like, thinking back on the movie, and I'm like, wow, this really shows how, like, a horror can make a difference. And you know what? It's a perfect example of a great horror movie.
A horror with a heart of gold can make a big difference in a boy's life.
That's right. Yeah. I'm slurring my speech because guess what, guys? It's empty.
Wow. Woo, go Brad. That's a really good pick, Jim. Like, yeah, before the show, this one was whittled down to my short list too, and so I was like, all right, I'll take Alabama. You take Gigolo Joe, because I thought this was a really good one because it was a male character. It was the
sci-fi,
the Heart of Gold story. It was sci-fi, and it was a character who was not one of the major characters, not a part of the core plot. I mean, he was certainly a part of, like, the main character's story, but he was, his was not the story. He was a supporting character in the role, but it was a memorable one. When I think of Jude Law as an actor, a guy who's got, like, a bunch of films under his belt, this is usually the first film I think about when I think of him. I think of him doing his little, like, Gigolo Joe turn and his little dance.
His little dance, yeah.
And the movie itself, I think, is an extremely, I would say nowadays it's underrated movie, because I think nowadays people look back at it as Spielberg. I've heard this quite a bit. Spielberg ruining a Kubrick idea. But the thing about this movie is Kubrick and Spielberg were really close friends, and this was Kubrick originally trying to make a Spielberg movie as an homage. And when he passed, Spielberg finished doing a film that was basically this film ended up being Spielberg doing Kubrick doing Spielberg, and I loved like the meta story to that, kind of the story of the two friends and filmmakers. I think that always excites me about this movie.
Yeah, indeed, great pick. All right, my final pick. I will be brief. Everyone knows about this movie anyway, probably. Although Jim, you mentioned today you haven't seen it, so we're gonna have to fix that.
Yeah, maybe tonight.
Maybe tonight. Chris Lopez talked about this film on our Facebook page, and it's my favorite horror movie ever. I'm referring, of course, to The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. How can you go wrong with Dolly Parton, Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, and Jim Nabors? So much talent in this film. Will, have you seen it?
I indeed have, yes.
All right. Awesome stuff. I mean, basically the premise, I'm not going to spoil it because we're about to watch it after the show, perhaps.
There's a whorehouse. It's little.
And it's in Texas.
It's in Texas.
Basically, there's this brothel that's like been around like for decades, right? It's very well known. It's in this small little town in Texas, and everyone's okay with it. Everyone loves to go there, and the mistress of the house, Dolly Parton, goes into town, and she's like, "Hey, y'all, from Whoring Around, we raised $85,000 for your softball team." And they're like, "Thank you, Miss Whore Headmistress. We love you." But a TV minister / journalist finds out about the whorehouse and decides to publicize like his crusade to take it down. So he like shows up in the town and he starts trying to get local law enforcement involved. And of course, Burt Reynolds plays the sheriff who gets his jollies with Dolly Parton's Miss Mona, and he looks the other way. And it's super cute. It's a musical. I think it's based on a stage play. And I mean, overall, the music isn't that great for me. I don't watch it for the music. I watch it for the hairy-chested Burt Reynolds and the Dolly Parton awesomeness. But it's another one of those stories with like, these characters who are less than morally upstanding citizens, but they're still like great people, and it's really, really fun. It was another one of those like go-to movies on a rainy day. You know what I mean? And I think as a kid, I didn't really realize why I was so transfixed whenever like Burt Reynolds was not in his sheriff's uniform, when he was wearing like the Japanese slingshot, which is really a thong that Dolly Parton bought him with metal snaps that she could just like pull right off. This movie was rated R. It doesn't really have a lot of like graphicness, but I mean, you see some women's butts and I mean, there's enough there for an R rating, but it's more of like a musical comedy. You know what I mean? It's not really like a gritty, super dirty kind of thing. You know what I mean? But Jim Nabors, I love Jim Nabors. People thought he was dead today in the room when we were talking, and I'm like, no, guys, he's alive. He just married his partner like recently. No, Jim and our friend visiting from Australia, Craig, were like, no, we think he's dead. And I'm like, no, he's not. Come on.
Literally, he was just in the news like last week?
2 days ago.
2 days ago, yeah.
Like 2 days ago.
I had seen something about him on Facebook recently, and I'm like, this is one of those stories that gets repeated like every 2 years, like so-and-so died, this year, but actually they died like 4 years ago.
Right.
And people get all like, oh my God, I didn't know.
Well, anyway, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas is the best little horror movie ever, I feel. So I'm honored that I got to close out our horror movies with that pick. Good stuff. Will, you saw it? Did you like it?
Yeah. This is a fun one. The music is fun. The performances are fun. Interestingly enough, like you mentioned, it was an R-rated movie. This one actually broke the record previously held by Conan the Barbarian for the highest weekend debut for an R-rated film at the time, which is impressive for this type of film and this type of subject matter. It actually came out in the middle of the E.T. like box office just demolishing. E.T. was like, it had like a total of like 8 weeks or so where it was the #1 film, except for 1 week right in the middle where Best Little Whorehouse of Texas like dethroned it for a week. So I guess we like our cinematic horrors, huh?
It's so funny because I mean I kind of threw this out as a topic, like not really thinking that we would seriously glob onto it, but I think this is one of the most fun discussions we've had in a really long time. It was kind of neat, like revisiting some of these films and thinking about stand-up horrors. So thanks for being willing to roll with my speech flub that turned into a topic.
I mean, there's a lot of movies out there that we could have also talked about. I mean,
The Longest Ride.
No, horror movies.
Oh.
Yeah. Also,
Monster was close to making my list.
Milk Money.
Charlize Theron, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Lot of great horror movies out there. We've only scratched the surface of the horror well, but
Milk Money, I think that was a porn title too.
No, probably.
So interestingly enough, we were talking before the show about whether Facebook would censor us because we have the word whore in the title of the show. Sure enough, I got a nastygram from Facebook.
Which is odd because there's a movie titled Best Little Whorehouse. So I
know.
I don't understand it.
It's an automated filter. It's stupid. Whatever.
Maybe because they feel like you might be bullying somebody. I don't know.
Could be.
Maybe that, or like selling something you're not supposed to be selling online.
Well, that's a point too. We'll have to figure out like an alternate title name if it's going to play safe on Facebook. Maybe
Best Little accepts money for sex house.
Or like Best Little WH0RE.
I think an alternate spelling might be.
We'll be one of those people who puts numbers in titles, Will.
Oh, Brad, anything but that. Can we just do like an ASCII, just use like the little hyphens and a D and make like just a little cock and make that our symbol? Can we just use that? See if that goes through the filter?
Maybe. We'll see. We'll figure it out. But anyway, super fun discussion. Guys, let's very quickly move through our plugs this week. Jim, what's yours?
My plug is a short film that I got to see this week from filmmaker Don Hertzfeldt. Will, I think you're probably familiar with Don Hertzfeldt. He's an Austinite.
Yes, he is.
I'm familiar with him. Do you want to know why?
Why?
My anus is bleeding.
Yes. My squid is too big. Anyway, Don Hertzfeldt, for those of you who don't know him, he's made several pretty famous animated and very well-received and award-winning short films, all hand-drawn animation, usually kind of stick figure-y, very basic, but the charm here is actually in the characters and the stories that he develops. This new one is kind of a step in a totally different direction. He's still got some of the... Will, I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's called World of Tomorrow. It's on Vimeo for like $4. People who want to see it, you can go out and see it for like $4. It's like a 16 or 17-minute short. It's amazing. It mixes elements. It's got the Don Hertzfeldt character. It's got science fiction. This one actually has a story, which I really loved about this, and it's actually got an emotional punch to it a little bit, which I found a little bit surprising and really refreshing. The animation style is cool because he does some different things with layers, and visually it's very interesting. Again, it's called World of Tomorrow by Don Hertzfeldt, and you can find it right now on Vimeo for like $4. So get a few friends together. When you got 20 minutes, all pitch in $1. Go buy this movie. It's definitely worth seeing. And then, if you like it, go back and see Don Hertzfeldt other stuff, which you can probably find on YouTube at this point.
Especially Rejected. Yeah.
Yes, Rejected. Yes.
And Jim, I might recommend if you get a chance, he has one that he put out. It was in 3 parts, but they compiled it into one movie. It's on Netflix. It's called It's Such a Beautiful Day. He did that over the course of like 10 years, but the compilation just came out like in the last 6 months. And it's his other, like, you'll watch that and you'll laugh a bunch, and then you'll cry, and then you'll get to the point where like it hits you in the gut really hard, and then you'll just be a ball of you'll just be a mess. Like for me, it's one of the movies that most wrecked me within the last year. So if you liked World of Tomorrow, and I did too, it was really good. I think, Jim, you would really like It's Such a Beautiful Day.
I think we've seen It's Such a Beautiful Day, or at least part of it, at the Loft at one point.
Yeah, I think we did too. Yeah, really, really good.
Is it about the dude that like sees a doctor or he's taking meds or something. Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. My plug this week is for MBP TV. We are recording on a special day and time tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, which if you're listening to this in iTunes was actually the day before you're listening to it, so you'd have to go back in time. Anyway, we have an awesome show this week. We're going to be talking about the premiere of Game of Thrones. We're going to be talking about the first episode of Netflix's new Daredevil series, and we'll also be talking about the premiere of Silicon Valley. So a lot of HBO-age, a lot of Netflix-age, interesting no-network shows that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Cut the cord, man.
Imagine that,
That's
right?
the way things are going.
We're going to have a lot of awesome stuff to talk about. So we'll be recording at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time Tuesday. If you're listening on digital tape delay, you can pick us up in iTunes probably during the day Wednesday. So check out the show. Will, close us out, my friend.
You mentioned my plug. I'm going to plug Daredevil, which is on Netflix, and it is so fucking good. Like, I've heard someone describe it this way for anyone that hasn't seen it yet and is deciding whether or not they should see it. It's like if someone took the direction style of Park Chan-wook, who's the guy that did 2003's Old Boy, and combine it with the ability to write characters and dialogue of Joss Whedon, you would end up with Daredevil as your show. It is super freaking dark. It is extremely well choreographed. It is amazing. And I'm about halfway through it right now, and I will be probably finishing up a little bit more of it after we get done airing. It is that damn good.
I don't actually think it's that Joss Whedon-y.
Well, good, because Will had me until he said Joss Whedon.
Yeah, you mentioned that, Will, and I kind of see that with, in particular, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but I can see that a little bit. But for me, it's definitely a very gritty, gripping character drama, and there's a little bit of the funny. Are you talking about the Joss Whedon funny, or are you talking about
less the
quippy?
Funny itself, more
it's not
with
even that quippy or anything.
It's not. It's not quippy, but it's extremely smartly written. It's extremely smartly written,
right.
And that's something that Whedon has in spades. He can
Okay.
put together a script, and he can put together a scene, and he can put together a conversation where everything is very beat to beat, pace to pace.
Right. Okay.
Whether it be a slower conversation about someone talking to someone about the thing they got to do, or just a character building moment.
Right.
There's a lot of things in here that just remind me of his sensibilities, but through the lens of Park Chan-wook or a director like that who does dark, who does gritty, who does just these really harsh sequences.
I'm definitely going to give it a shot. I haven't seen it yet. I assume this is the first season of a long-running series, or is it just going to be one mini-series?
Well, so what Marvel has announced so far, what they're doing with this is this is a 13-episode series. They've got 3 more 13-episode series for 3 other different characters, and then those 4 characters are going to combine into a mini-series on Netflix afterwards. So we'll probably see another season 2 or something like that of this as well, but that's what the initial run looks like. Mm-hmm. It's going to be all of the street level side of the Marvel universe, kind of the dark crime type stuff.
Right. Yep. Good stuff. Great pick.
Give it a shot.
Absolutely. I definitely, Jim, I think you might like it. It's definitely. He's a superhero, but he's really not. You know what I mean? I like that they. It's not like he has powers. You know what I mean? He's blind. He has heightened senses, but at least from what I've seen so far, they don't treat it like he's I know. Human, you know what I mean?
My sensitivity is probably way high, but I feel like there's such a glut of superhero shows right now, and I'll give this one a shot because maybe this is one I definitely want to watch versus the others, which I can save for the people who are more into that. But we'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, guys, this has been a super fun show, but it is time to wrap things up for this week. Not sure what we're doing next week yet. We'll talk about that. We'll figure it out. We'll get back to you.
Maybe Ex Machina if we can get up there.
Maybe, yeah. If we can make it up there Friday night or something, maybe we can do that. And we would really, really love to have a friend of ours from South by Southwest. maybe join us for that show. That's what we end up doing. We'll have to talk to him. But
if we can't see that movie, maybe we'll switch over and do John's next week.
Oh,
Nice.
maybe they're still the longest ride. Anyway,
Is that a sex movie?
what?
That's going to be a porn.
All right, guys. Have a good one. We'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.